Here's a question for you. If you were talking to someone who has way too much stuff, who's kind of the opposite of you, and they're feeling overwhelmed and they want to do the bus life, what would you recommend to them? Where would you start?
Um, in terms of like their stuff, you're saying like specifically like just downsizing?
Well, let's think of it in terms of finding a tiny living situation that would work, that would fit them the best.
Sure. Well, I mean, I love buses. I like building them. I enjoy that community. But the one thing I try to tell people is I don't think buses are great for everyone. And it's not about buses. It's about the whole lifestyle. A tiny house might be better for you right now. A van might be better for you right now. And I think asking the questions of what type of lifestyle you intend on living is going to lead you down the right path more than I just really want to live in a bus. And it's like funny that I say that because I'm like a big advocate for the bus world. I love them, but when it comes down to it, I've done consulting with people where at the end of the conversation, they're not actually getting a bus anymore, and they called me to build a bus.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that that's a reality, but I think that's the best place to start with that is figuring out what type of home or vehicle is going to best suit you, and then from there moving forward. Because yeah, I mean, I've just met people who have bought buses or bought tiny houses, and then within 3-4 months, they're like, oh, I should have done that. So exploring your options and really deciding that I think is the first thing to do
Mm-hmm.
when moving that direction.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that living intentionally is more important than what you're living in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because it's not about the space. I mean, I love my bus and I love the way it's designed, but I mean, I spend most of my time not in my bus. And for the fact that my bus moves is great because the lifestyle I live is so mobile. The bus fits that, and it works. But it's not always going to work. I think going back to what I was saying before about like just you need to start doing something if you want to do it, because it would be unreasonable to think that I'm going to live in my bus for the next 20 years. So, I mean, I can say that, sorry to anyone who may know me from online or follows my adventures. I'm not going to live in my bus forever. Like that's unreasonable. It's,
Yeah.
life changes, life adjusts. And I think that you just need to get started and get involved in the community. And that's going to start leading you down paths you didn't know existed yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing is just start engaging. I mean, I know you've been at festivals with me where we've met people who come back time after time and they're just exploring different options.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, they're like, I just got a gypsy wagon.
Yes.
And you're like, what? You got a gypsy wagon? Like, where'd you come up with that?
Yeah.
But it works for them. Or like,
Yeah.
they're like, I got a step van. And you're like, a step van? Like, who? Like, I've never heard of someone getting but it's just cool to see that process happen. And I think that process happens because they started.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing with that.
So just take a step, do
Yeah.
something.
Yes, do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Contact someone, message someone. The community's
Yes. Yes.
pretty open. Yeah. Just start getting engaged. The forums, Facebook groups, Instagram, whatever you can
Yeah.
do, whatever you're comfortable with. I mean,
Yeah.
just start getting engaged in any way. And I almost guarantee you within the first, week, you're gonna have more information than you know what to do with. So I mean, yeah, I know me personally, I try as hard as I can to answer every message I get. It doesn't happen all the time, and sometimes I'm off grid for a while.
Right.
But I try because I know that person is just trying to find information, and if I can help them by a simple answer, I know what that was like when I started. So, it's hard, but you try,
Yeah.
and I think that's the important thing.
Well, one of the things that people will ask me is, how to go tiny. What would you recommend? And my answer is a little outside of the tiny house community box.
Sure.
My answer is whatever you can live in debt free. And if that's a Sprinter van, if it's a bus, if it's a tiny house, if it's one of the McMansion tiny houses, and you can park it on $1 million property in Oregon or wherever, do that. Whatever you can do debt free. That's, I think, the thing that has really made a big difference for us. Now, we're not debt free, but we did live without a mortgage for 3.5 years. And just
Yeah.
imagine if you've got a mortgage, and if you were looking at your bills and looking at your life for the next 3 years, what
Hmm.
would be possible that's not possible today if
Hmm.
you weren't paying the mortgage, if you didn't have the big utility bills, if you weren't paying, well, I mean, just throw in there things like the car payment and
Yep.
the credit card bills. What would be possible in your life?
Yeah.
And currency, we think of money as currency, but time is currency too. And when we're investing in those things, and really they are just things,
Hmm.
sometimes we don't really realize what we're losing in the process. And that was the amazing surprise for me. Living in 125 square feet was, wait, we can turn down contracts when we don't
Yeah.
like a
Oh my
client?
gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
know. It's like,
that's
what?
huge.
Yeah. What kind of business model do you have where you could turn down a contract? I
Yeah,
know.
really,
But
really.
it's true. It
It's
is. I can
absolutely
attest to
liberating.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I know like I'm pretty open with like finances and stuff. I know for me, living tiny was my way of also paying off my student loans. I mean, I went all the way through graduate school. I did have scholarships and grants and blah blah blah.
Yep.
But there's still debt there.
Right.
And for me, paying a lot of money in a mortgage or rent, and then a car payment and all these other
Yep.
things, and then trying to cover my student loans. I
Right.
mean, I don't know how my college roommates and other people do it, like, and that sounds ignorant in a way, but I have trouble, and I'm living tiny and I'm working,
Right.
and and if you also have all those other bills, um obviously it's stressful.
It is
So
stressful.
for me, tiny living was a way for me to remove the stress and still live.
Yeah.
Like I currently, as of the moment, still have some student loans that are not fun,
Yeah.
but
Me too.
I travel full time,
Yeah.
and I go wherever I want and work, because I've developed over the last few years a lifestyle that suits me for that.
Hmm.
And if I maybe would have been living more of a traditional lifestyle, I don't know where I would be, but I don't think I'd be as free to travel and have the choices I do.
You,
And yeah, it just,
you would know a lot less people.
oh my gosh, yes, yeah, yeah, which would make life a lot less fun.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds tragic. Knowing of you what I know, that seems so tragic. The Michael in the house with the mortgage and the car payment and the education
Mhm.
loans versus the Michael in the bus who's been all over the country, made
Yeah.
friends in various communities of with all kinds of people,
Mhm.
and who literally, I mean, I've heard you say that if you see somebody kind of circling outside the bus and you get this feeling that they want to come in and
Yeah.
see, that you invite them in.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Let's make breakfast, have some fun. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I just think that, I mean, I think that you could even live in a house with a mortgage and still live this lifestyle. I think the real thing that sometimes even gets me a little bothered is that when tiny living is the only option, tiny living is just a square footage. That the mindset is what I'm more worried about. I don't care if you live in a bus or a tiny house or a van.
Yeah.
You can live in 2,000 square feet
Yeah.
and still live a tiny lifestyle because of the way your mindset is. That's really what it is. And
Yeah.
I think if anyone's even listening to this and they're like, oh, I can't ever live in that square footage, good. Maybe then you could figure out in your lifestyle now how to maybe minimize expenses, or use the space you do have in a productive way,
Yep.
or just anything that you can do, because I'll preach all I want to, like, hey, buses are cool, but once again,
Buses are cool.
maybe, yeah, buses are cool, but maybe a 2,000 square foot house is what you need right now.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, and if that's true, then how can you take maybe principles of the tiny house movement and apply them to your life there?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think if we can just get people to do that alone, that changes a lot within
It does.
society and culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, we lived tiny for 3.5 years. And it wasn't until after I got out of that situation, we're living in 660 square feet now. We got the big house.
Yeah, the mansion.
And it wasn't until we'd lived here for a while that I realized that the tiny house wasn't what changed my life.
Yeah.
Embracing simplicity changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I can do in 660 square feet. It's probably something it would have been good to do back when I lived in the close to 4,000 square foot house on the golf course. But
Yeah.
life felt so different because
Mhm.
that big space lends itself to a sense of isolation, and in my case, depression, and just feeling disconnected from everything because I was saddled with this huge mortgage and this huge house. And
Yeah.
that feels very different than these small, intimate spaces. And I think that's the one thing that we don't really realize when we're living in big spaces is that they feel different to live in than the
Oh,
small spaces
completely.
do. And that's
Yeah.
a really kind of unexpected perk.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So it's
Definitely.
really a fun perk. We're always talking about intentional living, purpose, and contentment. It's so much fun. I put together these conversations in an online virtual summit. You can see the rest of this conversation and a whole bunch more at simplifymy.life. By the way, it's all free. That's really cool, right? Click the Learn More button when you get there, and that will show you the dates. Mark your calendar, register to save your seat, and I will see you at the summit. Don't miss a thing. This information is so exciting, and I'm so passionate about this topic because what it does is it takes us out of overwhelm into clarity and contentment and confidence. And that's really exciting for me, and that's what I want for you. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Go check out simplifymy.life now and register. See you at the summit. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.